Hi everybody. I was asked by a friend if I could demonstrate how to make this poppy. It was the first poppy I've ever made with this particular product. It is the Katy Ultimate Flower Veiner. It's for any 5 petal cutters. So for this one I've used a peony cutter. Now you'll need 2 layers for this. Now this is made with polymer clay and it is rolled out on a number 6 with a pasta machine. You just need to lay your clay on the veiner. Now in hindsight I should have maybe dusted it with corn flour or rubbed some Vaseline over it just to get it to release earlier, but this is literally only the second time I've used it, so it was a bit of a learning curve, but I thoroughly enjoyed using this. So what I'm doing here is literally just pressing down to make sure I get all of those veins everywhere. Now don't use a rolling pin because what will happen is the 2 veiners will slide and you'll get a double impression, which wouldn't be the end of the world with this, but it's just as easy just to press it. As you can see, there's absolutely tons of detail on both sides now, so give it a flex. Now if you'd use a release it would be a lot easier, but just turn that upside down and flick the edges and just peel it off. I'm struggling a little bit because this is translucent clay and translucent clay is so soft. I've used Premo normal translucent mixed with some cardamom red. Just a tiny little bit of cardamom red gave this beautiful bright red poppy colour. So we're going to repeat this again, and as you can see I'm going to struggle a little bit with this because the clay just keeps sticking to itself, but I'm leaving all of the little things that went wrong, or not exactly wrong, but the struggles. As you can see, it's rolling back and sticking on itself. And clearly driving me mad. So there you go. I'm actually dusting the clay with corn flour on both sides. There's not a great deal. I use that kabuki brush because it holds the corn flour really well. You can always dust your mat as well, but like I say, there's lots of different ways to use a release. You could spray the veiner with water, you could rub it with baby oil, Vaseline, which in probably the next one I will. For some reason I use them upside down. It doesn't actually make any difference, but you know, like I said, just press all over, make sure you don't miss anything, get right to those edges because the edges will get nice and fine and look really finished and professional. The guy who worked with Katy Sue to do these is called Nicholas Lodge, and he's an absolute genius with flour paste, fondant and sugar paste, and he makes the most amazing cakes and cake decorations. These flowers look so realistic. Katy Sue have got a whole Nicholas Lodge range, but this Ultimate Flower Veiner and the Flower Pro range I think are going to change people's whole, I don't know, flower making game here. So what I'm doing here is I'm just cutting in between the petals so they look a bit more individual as opposed to one big giant flower. As you can see, that clay is so sticky and soft. But it doesn't have to be perfect. You can use scissors to do this as well. And you do the same thing with air dry clay. The technique is exactly the same. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just shading the centres, because I always think poppies always look like the dark from the middle and it bleeds out. So what I've actually used, as opposed to using black, I've used a mixture of dark purple and brown. Now you can use mica powders, you can use chalk pastels, you can paint it, you can use gilding waxes. What I'm actually using here is eyeshadow, to be perfectly honest. I wanted something that would blend out really easily, and it was the two colours I wanted were actually an eyeshadow as opposed to anything else. And they've got a tiny sheen to them, but as you can see, they pick up the details really well. Now I've put that on both sides so that when you turn it over, you can actually see the colour when the petals are curled up. Now what I'm doing here is I'm just manipulating these petals a little bit to make them look a bit more realistic and weather beaten. Now my plan was going to be to cook it on a ceramic tile like I do with all my other clay, but it wasn't going to work for this. It wasn't going to hold the shape at all. So I came up with some pastry cases. Now it will be the same again with the air dry clay. Use 2 pastry cases and dry them separate. I mean, you don't have to dry them separate. For polymer clay you will have to, but for the air dry clay you could stick them together and dry them together. But I think doing it separately, you've got more control of the outcome. So I've flattened the pie case, and that is for the base of the poppy, and we're going to put some tissue paper in just so we don't pick up the creases from that foil. I don't know why I'm splitting this tissue, like I can't afford tissue or something, but there you go. And what that'll do is, you can see it'll hold the edges of the poppy up just so they look a bit more natural. You can manipulate them, you can flatten them out, curl them up, do anything you like, because that polymer clay will hold the shape pretty well in the oven. Because it's so thin, it might droop a little bit, but to be honest, once it was baked, I didn't really see there wasn't a great deal of problems. Now for the second one, I'm actually tipping those edges up a little bit, because I want it higher. And again, put your tissue in and poppy in there, and as you can see, it looks a lot deeper than the other one. So that's your top layer of petals. Now bake those to the manufacturer's instructions. You might want to tent it, depends on your oven, and I cooked them for like 20 minutes on 130 degrees, but please read your manufacturer's instructions because they're all going to be different. Now I rebaked these and stuck them together with bacon bond. Now to get those petals to stay up, I stuffed tissue paper in between the two, because when polymer clay gets warm, it's going to sag, so you would just end up with 2 flat bases. So just by stuffing tissue paper in between those petals, you're going to get that raised effect, and you can do exactly the same thing with air dry clay. Stick them together and let them dry with the tissue in between, and you'll get that raised effect. I think that turns out pretty well, especially considering it was only the second time I've attempted a poppy with this flower Vienna. Now to do the centre in the air dry clay, I used black and yellow flower soft. For the poppy, I'm using micro beads, black and gold. Now I noticed that I hadn't put enough bacon bond, so I decided rather than putting it back in the oven, I was going to use the same thing that I was using to stick the micro beads in the centre. So what I'm actually using is UV resin. Now this UV resin is from Sophie and Toffee, as you can see, but you can use anybody's UV resin. And the thing I like about UV resin is it's pretty instant. Once you put that lamp on to cure it, you're good to go. Now that is a black light torch or UV torch. and it's a nice and strong one, so it works pretty quick, much quicker than a lot of the nail lamps that people are using, and I am pretty impatient. I mean, you can use a nail lamp, you can use a torch, you can use natural sunlight, whatever you've got to hand. You know, if you want to start off with UV resin, you don't want to buy lots of expensive equipment. So I've added the UV resin in the middle and spreading it around a bit, but I will add a little bit more there, as you'll see, because I want it to be quite raised. There you go. And the good thing is with UV resin, it stays wet until you actually dry it with UV. As long as you're not working outside, you're good to go till you're ready to cure it. So literally all I'm going to do is sprinkle those black micro beads on there. Give them a few minutes to soak in. And they do soak into resin because they're quite heavy. You could even use black glitter. Black glitter will give a beautiful effect as well, or a mixture of glitter, micro beads, little pearls, anything you want. Sky's the limit. Now I'm leaving this in real time so you can actually see how quick it sets. And it sets up really, really quickly. In possibly about a minute. I don't know if I look at the timer. Now, the one thing I will say is be careful with those UV lights because you don't want to get them in your eyes. So there you go, there's the centre, and that is completely dry. It doesn't need to be set anymore. It's not going anywhere. It's not sticky. The good thing about the pie tray as well is you can easily get those those micro marbles back in the jar, or if you watch this, it might actually go everywhere, of course. But they are actually pennies. I think I got those from AliExpress as well, or some craft shop. Everything that I know where I got it from, I will leave the links below. Some things I just got from a stash because I've got way too much. Way too much. So we're going to add the gold micro beads around the outside. So all I'm going to do is pop a bit of UV resin on my mat. Because it's a silicone mat, I'll just pop that UV resin on, and whatever's left I'll set it and it'll flake off. And such messy work with all those balled up tissues. You think I could have moved them. And all I'm doing is adding that UV resin around the edges, anywhere I want it. And that is the good thing about this, you've got lots of play time. And there you go, all I'm going to do, sprinkle the gold micro beads on. Now this time I'll shake the micro beads off because I want to actually manipulate them a little bit and get them exactly where I want them to be. So actually everywhere, not in the places I want them. I want them to look random, but I don't want any in the middle, just want them right the outside. So I looked at a lot of pictures of poppies, and the yellow part of the centre of the poppy, whatever it's called, it seemed to be yellow around the outside and mainly black in the middle, and that's the effect I wanted to get. So all I'm doing is moving those micro beads around to get them where I want them. It's worth taking your time though. It's get it exactly how you want it. It takes a few minutes. And there you go, setting that again with the UV torch. Absolutely brilliant. I love UV resin. And I think, considering this is the second time I've used the flower veiner, it works out pretty well. And as you can see, so that means anybody can use it. I've never used it before. It's brand new to me. I did get it from Katy because I work on the design team, so I make samples. But the Flower Pro range was not for the crafters; it was for the cake people. And Katy were kind enough to let me have a play with it, so I'm very, very grateful. But there's the two poppies